Okay, I'm going to have a long talk, and what I'm going to do in this talk is I'm going to paint the picture of what I think we got coming in our near future. Uh, it's not going to be pretty. Now, I think some of these guys out there who are real complete doom, I mean, they think that society is going to come to a complete stop and we're going to have a complete freeze in the financial system, and the world runs on money, and the whole world is going to come to a grind and stop, and we're going to go into a Mad Max type scenario. And the preppers have been preparing for this. I think the actuality of that actually going that way is relatively slim. Now, I'm not going to say none. I'm going to give it about 10%, maybe 20% at the worst chance of that actually happening that way. But I don't think that's what's really going to happen. And some people might say, well, I have normalcy bias. And maybe I do a little bit, but I just don't see it completely descending into a Mad Max type of world. I think that the powers that be will react to the situation, and like they did during the Great Depression, and it didn't become a Mad Max world. But I don't think this, on the other hand, too, I don't think that this thing is going to be a breeze, that we're going to walk away unscathed from it. And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take a little bit of time, and I'm going to paint a picture of what I think it's going to be like. So it'll give you an idea of what's going through my mind, of what I think it's going to be like. Now, this is a prediction. It's my prediction of what I picture in my mind of the situation being like when it comes to unfold. And there's reasons why I think it's going to unfold that way, and maybe I'll get into them some. The thing is about, about January, I saw the economy starting to pick up a little bit. And I saw crude production in West Texas specifically starting to drop off a cliff just before the early part of this year. And so I said to myself, hey, this is it. This is the trigger that I've been waiting for, when crude prices go back up again and it destroys the dollar. So I thought that would be it. But what I couldn't see is I couldn't see into the future. I couldn't see that they would actually pump a whole bunch of money into the oil wells of West Texas, and they would increase crude production again, and the oil well count would go back up again, and crude prices would actually fall back. I also didn't think that the Fed would raise interest rates as much as they have. And so these two factors came together, and it threw things off from what I was expecting. Now, I'll explain to you why. The economy has to go through a period of increase where it actually picks up before it causes the hyperinflation. Hyperinflation is not the result of an economy that's flatlining, an economy that's actually failing. Hyperinflation is actually the result of loss of confidence in the buying power of the currency. And it's brought on, that loss of confidence is brought on when the currency starts to inflate and become, lose its value. Then what happens is people start to buy things because they think to themselves, hey, if I don't buy it right now, it's going to go up in price in the next 6 months. And they start to actually, and that pours money in, and then the banks help it along, and the whole thing just blows up into what's called a crack-up boom. That's what it's called. And what we've been experiencing during the last period, and including now, with oil prices falling, commodity prices falling, is actually the opposite. This is deflation. This is what Harry Dent preaches, and a number of others, the deflation. And so that's what we're going into right now. So things have turned around. The Federal Reserve right now they're raising interest rates. They plan on raising again in September. I predicted that this interest rate hike would not trigger the crisis, the deflationary spike or deflationary event. But in September, I think when they raise rates in September, that they're finally going to start to hit the threshold where they're going to start to see the effects of all this tightening. I think the whole thing is going to start in September, and we're going to start to see some actual real deflation and real dropping of these hoped for increase in the cost of living and stuff. Inflation is going to drop during the next interest rate hike in September. And September's not that far away. I think that's going to trigger the whole thing to happen. And I think what's going to happen then is the stock market's going to drop off. Not drop off a cliff. I think it's going to make it's going to go down quite a little bit, but I don't think it's going to drop off a cliff. I don't think it's going to be what you'd refer to as a real crash as such. I think it's going to be more of a really bad correction. It's going to lose a lot of its gains. So that's what I think is going to happen with the stock market. And I think when that happens, it's going to really frighten the Fed then at that point. And they're going to be talk of recession. There's going to be other things happening at the same time that's going to cause the Fed to retract what they're doing now. They're going to try to turn this whole thing around. They're going to go into panic mode at that point. And they're going to lower interest rates back down again. They're going to start a new round of quantitative easing. And they're going to do what's called helicopter money through social programs. What I'm expecting is at that point they're going to probably instate a new social program that coincides with the food stamp program that they already have, where they'll probably call it the universal income for all Americans, and here in Canada they'll call it the guaranteed income for all Canadians, and so on and so forth, where they're going to give you an income that's not really welfare. It's just all you'll have to do is go in and show them that you're alive. Show them your social security number or whatever, and you got it. Show them your identity and where you live, and you'll receive your check. And that check's probably going to be as big as if you were working minimum wage. So a lot of people are just going to quit their minimum wage jobs at that point. So what's going to happen when all of this happens simultaneously, when the Federal Reserve drops interest rates down to zero, when they start the helicopter money. Now, and one other thing, helicopter money will probably come in a couple other forms too. One will be income tax rebate checks on your income tax. They can do that too, and all they need is a social security number, and they know how much income tax you paid back during your whole income tax history. They'll probably send you either a percentage of it or the whole thing back in one lump check. And so when all this money starts to flow into the system, when they turn things around, and believe me, they're going to, that's when we're going to see the prices on everything jack up to the moon. And that's when you're really going to see. But when this first happens and all this new money flows into the system, the good times are going to be here. Rock on, man. You're going to see new jobs created from all this new money. You're going to see an awful lot of people quit their low-paying jobs because they're going to be on the new income assistance programs, the new guaranteed income programs. They're not going to need to work at McDonald's anymore, and so they're going to just drop their tools working at McDonald's, and McDonald's is suddenly going to be lost a few employees. Now, when you have that not happening on all the cheap places where everybody does all these menial cheap jobs, jobs that are like, I don't know, $10 an hour or whatever, they all quit, and they go on these new programs where they can collect money. And they quit their jobs. All of a sudden, you're going to see help wanted signs in just about every window of every little small restaurant. Right? Because these people now are going to be collecting a check from the government instead. So they're not going to need these jobs anymore. So you're going to see help wanted, because then they'll need to fill these jobs. So there'll be jobs to go around for everyone. There'll be a lot more jobs. And this kind of system is like nothing we've ever seen before. We're going into uncharted territory. And if you're listening to what I'm saying, you'll realize that this is uncharted territory. So when it first starts, there is going to be an increase in all job activity, and there's going to be an increase. Everybody's going to be buying things. Merchandise will be flying off the store shelves. Factories will have to increase production. Consumers will be buying and splurging. This is just going to be fantastic because we've been in, I'm not going to really call it a depression, but it's been almost like it's a recession. It is a recession. They're not calling it a recession, but it's been a recession. So when this recession finally comes, when they raise the interest rates too high and a real recession comes, they're going to have to, it will actually be a depression, but then they'll call it a recession. If you know what I mean. Right now, they're not calling this nothing. They're calling this a recovery. This is actually a recession. But when the real depression comes, then they'll call it a recession. It's always like they're always one step behind what it really is. And so anyway, we'll go through that recession for probably a few weeks because it's not going to last long. And then they're going to bring in the helicopter money. They're going to dump it on us. And they're going to dump this helicopter money, and it's going to stimulate the economy. And that's when I'm expecting this pickup. But believe me, this pickup's not going to last long because the inflation is going to start to skyrocket then. And the Fed, there's nothing the Fed can do about it at all. Because they're going to be already switched positions into an accommodative position. So there's nothing that they can do. And it's just the money is going to take off. The velocity of money is going to take off. Everything's going to skyrocket. That's when you're going to see the price of gold go nuts. And that you think the cryptocurrencies are going nuts now. You ain't seen nothing yet. And so what's going to happen then is they're going to start to lose control over everything. And so now getting to the nitty-gritty of what this whole conversation is about, what is it actually going to be like for everyone out there? Is it going to be a Mad Max world? No, I don't think so. In fact, I don't even think the power is going to go out. Seriously, I don't think the power is going to go out. And I don't think your grocery stores are going to go empty of food. I think the food's still going to be there in the grocery store. The problem is I'll use eggs as an example. You're going to go in and you probably pay around $2.50 right now for a dozen eggs. A dozen large eggs, right? And so maybe $2. I don't know exactly. I'm just guessing. I don't know the exact price of them in the States, but around probably $2.50 a dozen. Maybe they're a bit more, maybe a bit less, depending on what city you live in. Anyway. So with your salary right now, what you make an hour, you can easily buy a dozen eggs, 2 dozen, 3 dozen, 4 dozen. In fact, most people out there with their salary can probably, for an hour's work, can probably buy 6 dozen eggs. No problem. Well, here's the thing. What you're going to see when this thing hits is the eggs will still be in the store and you'll still be able to purchase them. But you're going to see that what they cost go up, and you're not going to see your salary go up to keep up with the price of the eggs going up. So your salary is only going to go up maybe during the hyperinflation. It's only probably going to go up 10%, like per every 6 months. It'll go up like 10%. Well, right now, that would be great. You'd say my salary's going up 10% per every 6 months. And man, that's wonderful. Because you probably haven't seen a pay raise in a long time, maybe years. And all of a sudden your salary's going up 10% every 6 months. You'd say, oh, wonderful. But when this hyperinflation's on, your salary's only going to be going up 10% every 6 months, but your food prices are going to be doubling every month. Now what this means is, the first month you'll be able to buy for 1 hour's worth of work, you'll be able to buy six dozen eggs. The next month, for 1 hour of your work, you're only going to be able to buy, say, 4 dozen eggs. And the next month, 2 dozen eggs. Right? For your hour's work. And the month after that, maybe a dozen. Because the price of the eggs is going to go up and up and up and up and up. And instead of being $2.50 a dozen, and the first thing you know, they're going to be $10 a dozen, and then they're going to be $20 a dozen. But your pay will have not kept up. And so your cost of living is going to go up amazingly. Unbelievably, your cost of living is going to go up. And in the end, your cost of living is going to go so high in dollars, in terms of dollars, and that's what you're still going to be making. Gasoline prices by that time are going to spike so high, and everything's going to spike so high. It's going to cost you more to get into work, for your gas to get into work than you make working. I mean, this is the kind of thing that's going to happen. And your salaries are not going to keep up. But you're still going to have grocery stores. It's still going to have food in them. But the problem is being able to buy it. And there will be shortages. I think what you're going to see also at the same time is shortages on certain things, on certain items. So what you're going to be looking at is you're going to be looking at the power staying on. You'll still have police protection. The police will still come through, and there'll be a certain degree of law and order, I think, during this situation. But what's going to be happening is you're going to see gold and silver prices going up to keep up with inflation, maybe even more than to keep up with inflation. So gold and silver are going to be going up faster than the price of the eggs. Faster. Twice as fast. Right? It's the dollar that's going to be going in the opposite direction. So everybody and their dog's going to want to get out of those dollars, because they're going to suddenly realize, hey, if I keep my money in dollars, I'm going to be broke in a little while, because we're in a hyperinflation. And by that time, it's going to be manifest. Everybody's going to know they're in a hyperinflation. They're going to be wanting to get out. They're going to be wanting to get into something that's going the other way. But strange as it is, there used to be only one place you could go to get out of dollars and get into something that had value that you could use for currency that wasn't dollars. And that used to be precious metals. But now there's new cryptocurrencies, and they offer a second alternative. But that's it. You've only got two places, even now, and to get out. If you want to get out of the paper currencies, and you want to get into something that is real, that is you only got two places to go. That's precious metals and cryptocurrencies. So the cryptocurrencies right now are taking off first. They're already taken off. I think that it's part of the reason why they're taking off is speculation. And part of the reason is the fact that the hyperinflation is not far away. But I think that the cryptocurrencies, we're going to go through a little period of deflation before the real hyperinflation comes. And so this move with the cryptocurrencies, I think, is a little bit on the premature side. And I think that they could fall back yet before the before the deflationary period is over. The cryptocurrencies could fall back, along with gold and silver. Gold and silver are already fallen back. Oil's already fallen back. This period of deflation is not going to go that far. I think it's only going to last until a little while after the next interest rate hike. And I think that next interest rate hike is really going to trigger it. And once it gets triggered, it's going to happen so fast then at that point that they have to react to it. And they have to put us... they have to end it. They have to end the deflationary period, and that's when we're going to go into the hyperinflationary period. We're going to shift. It's going to be a shift, and I think that this whole thing is going to happen not long after September. So what to look for is, as signs of this, is sometime after September us to have a little bit of a deflationary. In other words, go into a recession. We're going to go into a recession, a very bad recession. Then the government's going to react in a positive way to fix it, because they're going to be called upon to fix it. Their reaction to that is going to shift everything in the opposite direction, and then that's when inflation's going to take off. And at first it's going to feel good, for a short period of time. It's going to pull the economy out of its doldrums. We're going to finally experience an economic recovery for real. That's going to be very short-lived before inflation heats up and gets out of control. And then we start to head into the hyperinflation. So the timing on all of this, probably maybe September or October, maybe the deflation. November, December, the recovery. Maybe January, the recovery. Along in there during the winter, the recovery. February and March, the inflation starts to heat up and get out of control. And by May or June of next year, we're going into the hyperinflation. This is kind of what I'm thinking in my mind. You know, my timing could be off, but kind of this is what I'm thinking. So by next spring, we'll be into the hyperinflation. It's going to burn through all the world's currency, because the dollar is de facto world reserve currency. All the world's currencies are pegged to the dollar. What we're going to see is something like you've never seen before once we really go into this hyperinflation. What'll happen is it's going to last longer than people think. People think, oh, this hyperinflation is going to be over in a few days, you know. No, this hyperinflation is going to last a while, and it's because they're going to cling to the dollar until the dollar gets to the point. They'll stay with it until the dollar gets to the point where they're wrapping rubber bands around big wads of bills and they're weighing them. That's how you'll buy the dollar, the U.S. dollar. They'll weigh it to you. It'll be like maybe 1 ounce of silver. The dollar then might be priced in silver, say, at that point. 1 ounce of silver might buy you 2 pounds of dollar bills. But they won't be ones. They'll be like 20s. So how many 2 pounds of dollar bills all wrapped in elastic bands, and they'll put it in a brown paper bag and hand it to you. And that'll probably cost you an ounce of silver. And you'll go home and you'll count it, and there'll be like maybe $100,000 there for 1 ounce of silver. And this is the kind of world we're going to be going into, where the dollar's at, and that'll be cash. You'll be able to go down to your grocery store and buy 1 cart full of groceries with that. But the guy next to you, next door neighbor to you, he'll still be making his wage. That'll be that $100,000 you just bought with 1 ounce of silver will be 2 years' work for him, for a couple carts full of groceries. But at least you'll be able to eat. What's he going to eat? Because if he goes to work and he has to work 2 years for that to get two carts full of groceries, what's he going to be eating at that point if he hasn't got any silver to trade? See? The fact is, it's going to be like Venezuela. He ain't going to be eating. He's going to be getting thinner and thinner and thinner. And so this is what silver and gold's going to be worth, because there's going to be a huge black market in the United States when this thing's on. So I'm starting to paint a picture for you what I think it's going to be like. A huge black market. People will still have their jobs, but it'll hardly be worth going to work. But you'll still go to work, because the alternative will be not eating at all. So you'll go to work, and by the end of the week, your salary might be able to buy you a dozen eggs, a loaf of bread, and maybe a few other little things, your salary. Whereas right now, your salary, it buys you amazing amounts of whatever you want. You can work one day right now, probably if you're making, I don't know, $15, $20 an hour, or so. And you can buy, right now, you can buy an ounce of silver for an hour's work. So if you're working overtime and stuff, you could buy like a dozen ounces in one day of silver, right? But there's going to be that same money that you're getting, your wage won't go up that much. Your same money you're getting in the end won't even buy you a dozen eggs. But now if you had silver when this thing happens, you'd not only be able to get a dozen eggs, you'd be able to fill your whole grocery cart twice. And so you'd have lots of food. See? because silver might be worth $100,000 an ounce by that time. And so this is the kind of world we're heading to. So the people on the block, that they'll be trading in their earrings, they'll be trading in their rings, their gold rings and stuff like that, their family heirlooms, so that they can eat. So this is how the government is going to get the silver and gold off of you back. They're not going to go, there are going to be two methods they're going to get it back. There's going to be a huge black market for gold and silver. Most people, but if you go through the government channels to sell it, they're going to hit you with a tax, more than likely. And so the government is going to end up getting most all the gold and silver because they figure that the people are going to be trading it back in during this period of hyperinflation to stay alive. And they will be. There's going to be a tremendous amount coming back in to the system because the price is going to be so high. People need to eat. So if they got some gold earrings that Aunt Martha gave them, they're going to go into the black market so they can get food to eat. And then ultimately, that'll all end up back into the government hands. Because let's just face it, the government for years now has been behind everything that's corrupt. And them and the bankers, they're just as bad as the bankers. The government is nothing but a bunch of lawyers. The politicians are all a bunch of lawyers. They're fat little lawyers, and they enjoy nothing more than making laws, and they think you got to obey them. They'll make any law that they think that they can make. They just think, okay, we can make any law we want, and they'll obey us. They'll do everything we want them to do. And they're lawyers. And they understand the law because they're what they call lawmakers. So yeah, they're going to understand the law because they control the law. They can make it, they're above the law because they are the law. They're a law unto themselves. And by doing so, what they've done is they've already exceeded the law. They've already done that. They're a law unto themselves. So they'll do whatever they want to do. And they're out of control. They're like a 7-year-old kid that's holding his breath until he turns blue and stomping his feet, and he's in the grocery store knocking everything down off the aisles. Completely out of control at this point. And they don't know when to stop. They don't know when they've gone too far. So this is what we're dealing with, and these are the ones who are making the laws and trying to govern us. And they're a bunch of schizophrenic. What do you call it? They're horrible. They're absolutely horrible. The government, they don't care about us. They only care about themselves and their big fat paycheck. You know what I mean? They really don't care about us at all. So I'm not going to get into the government too much more about that. I'm laying out for you what it's going to be like during this crisis. I think you're still going to have police protection. So I don't think you're going to need to protect yourself so much. But if you have, because the price of gold and silver will go up so high in the end through the black market, if you do have a little bit, you're going to have to be careful. You're going to have to be careful because there's going to be less law and order than there is now. There's more law and order now, and there's going to be more crime, kind of like there is in Venezuela, but not as bad as Venezuela, I don't think. There's going to be shortages of food and supplies, certain items. The grocery store is going to stock up more than they do on some items, and they're not going to have quite the variety that they do now. The prices are going to be exorbitantly high. It's going to be hard times. An awful lot of people are going to lose their jobs. An awful lot of people are not going to be able to make their payments on different things. There are going to be an awful lot more homeless people. The homeless people are going to be like disappearing off the streets because the government's going to come and round them up, and they're going to disappear into the system and probably never be seen from again. So it's not good. It's not a good idea to become one of the homeless people. If you can keep your home during this time, you'll stay safe. Stay in your own home. It might get to the point when this thing is at its worst where there might be curfews in and around a lot of the heavier populated areas. Nighttime curfews, probably starting at 9 o'clock at night and extending through until 9 or 8 o'clock or something the next morning. A curfew. And if you're out, you're going to be in big trouble. So the best thing to do during this crisis is going to be to stay home, stay in your house, and if you've got you'll be able to weather through this thing. I don't think it's going to last an awful long time. It's going to last until it gets to the point where you can't really buy much of anything with your money. And then they're going to come along and they're going to do a reset where they're going to bring out some new form of currency that's going to end the crisis. And you'll be able to buy into that new currency. And they're going to, at that point, the government is going to have their get out of jail free ticket, because the old currency, they're going to be able to pay off their debts with their old currency. It'd be almost worthless. So they're going to be able to pay off their debt at that point with worthless currency. Then everything's going to reset, and that's when we're going to go into a new economic expansion. After this thing is over, after this contraction finally ends. The contraction's going to end in a hyperinflation, which is going to end this expansion that we've had, this giant, enormous credit bubble that we've created for the last 30 years. This is going to end it. It's going to flush the system. The system's been needed to be flushing. It tried to flush in 2008, and they stopped it. And all they've done is prolong the agony. It's gonna go. This is inevitable. This has to go this way. But once it flushes and purges the system out, which it will when the dollar's finally destroyed, the old dollar, and then they'll probably call it a dollar. They'll probably bring out the new dollar, and this whole thing will come to an end. That's when we're going to go through an economic expansion, I believe. And I believe that going through this thing, if you know how to invest and where to invest, an awful lot of people are going to become rich that are not rich now, and an awful lot of people that are rich are going to become poor during this thing. This thing is going to transfer an awful lot of wealth, you know. That's one of the things it's going to do. So if you're set up the right way, you'll become wealthy. And your neighbors, if they might be wealthy right now and you might be envying them, they might lose their home and lose their car and lose everything during this thing. Whereas if you're positioned the right way, you might move up past them as easy as pie. Because this thing's going to make and break a lot of people. It's going to make some people, it's going to break others. It's going to be like nothing we've ever experienced before. This is going to be trying times. This is going to be something like you've never seen before. And it's all coming so fast. I think it's going to be here by the end of the year. And right now we're halfway through the year. Does this tell you how much longer I think you're going to have to wait for this thing to come? Not that much longer. We're right on the cusp of it. And right now everybody thinks everything's hunky-dory. Oh, the stock market's doing great. Everything's doing great. We're in this economic recovery. No, the whole thing's getting ready to blow up. This is when everything's getting ready to blow up right now. And the thing is you need to get prepared for this. I think that if it does go this 10% chance of going into a Mad Max world, you need to prepare for that too, just in case it does happen. The best way to prepare for that is to have some bottled water, have some food put away. What does it cost? It doesn't cost that much. Bottled water is not real expensive. Put away a bit of bottled water. Put away a little bit of food for yourself. Maybe set up, in some of my earlier videos, I have videos on self-protection and stuff like that for a shift. One of the things, if we do go into a shift, if everything really does break apart, and I'm only giving that a 10% chance of happening, if your house is in anywhere where there's other people not too far from you, like if you're in a neighborhood where there's quite a lot of people, and there could be roaming gangs at nighttime, what you need to do is not to sleep in your bed. Now, I've went over this before, but I'll go over it again real quick. It sounds unusual, but if we do go into a shift, if the power goes out, the power grid goes down all across North America, and we go into a shift and law and order breakdown, if, I'm saying if, there's not a big chance of it happening, but if it happens, don't sleep in your bed at night. What you do is you make yourself what I call a cubby hole. And basically what that amounts to is you get an old bed mattress, an old maybe a piece of foam or something off the cushions of your couch or something, strip the foam off of them, and you make a bed out of that, and you put some blankets on top of the foam or whatever to make yourself a bed. And you put that, and the bed only has to be about two maybe 3 feet wide, 2.5 feet wide. And you put it someplace where nobody would think of looking for you, where you're going to sleep, what I call a cubby hole. And what that would basically be is maybe underneath your kitchen cabinets. Maybe you could even crawl inside underneath your kitchen cabinets and put your bed inside there so you could shut the kitchen drawers behind you or whatever. Someplace, an old closet, someplace where nobody would think of looking for you. Up in the attic, maybe, you know. I don't know how your house is arranged. Maybe in your tool shed or someplace where nobody would really think to look for you, the first place that they'd think to look for you if they come into your house. So you got these roaming gangs going through the neighborhood. You picturing this? If you're in a shift. And they got guns, and generally they'll go roaming through the neighborhood at nighttime, whooping and yelling, looking to break into people's houses and steal everything and shoot the people inside and take everything they got. So you're asleep. You're laying there and you're snoring and everything else in your bed, you know. If they break into your house, the first thing that they're going to look is they're going to look see if you're in your bed, and they're going to kill you. Because that's what they're doing. They're going down the street killing everybody. That's what they'll be doing in a shift. There'll be a gang of them. So now they come looking for you in your bed, and you're not there. You're going to be in your cubbyhole sleeping. It's going to take them time to find your cubbyhole. By that time, you've woken up, and maybe you can save yourself at that point. You know, so that's one of the things to do. Another thing in the shift, I went over these things in one of my earlier episodes about a shift, is your guns. A lot of guys that are survivalists and want to prepare for a shift and everything, they just love guns. They got about, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. That's great. It's wonderful. Everybody should love guns, you know. But the thing about it is where I'm going with this is they've got about 30 different guns, and they can't make them up their mind which one that they like the best, you know. So they have all these different gauges of ammunition, the dozens of different types of ammunition. They got a little bit of ammunition for each gun that they keep on hand because they got so many. Well, that's not what you need for a shift. Is decide a couple of your guns that do a certain job that you really want for the shift. Maybe your pistol or your rifle or whatever. Pick a gun that you really want to use for the shift, and then load up on ammunition for those particular weapons that you're going to use during the shift. Not for all of your different weapons, but just for those weapons. Load up on ammunition, because here's the thing. When the shift comes, you're not going to be able to buy any more ammunition anymore. And you got to have enough to last you all the way through the shift. So this is what you got to think about. You got to think about ammunition. Got to think about that. So there's that. So you want your bottled water. You want some food put away. Now, another thing for the shift. You got to put away some medical supplies, including some antibiotics, and you're also going to need a little bit of get yourself some isopropyl alcohol. Get yourself some what's it called? Hydrogen peroxide. Get yourself some iodine. And now here's the thing. If there's nuclear fallout, you take one, only if there's nuclear fallout. Don't do this unless you've really got nuclear fallout. If you got nuclear fallout, you take 1 drop of that iodine and you put it in a glass of water and you drink 1 of those glasses a day. 1 drop of iodine a day in a glass of water, and you drink 1 of them a day if you've got the iodine. Now, the second thing is that tincture of iodine. If you get cut in a shift, say you're running through some barbed wire or something, you get a big gash on you, you put the iodine on it. It acts as a really good disinfectant. You've also got your peroxide, and you've also got your and now you want to have a little bit of medicated ointments and things like that for your medical kit. You want to have some bandages. You want to have some antibiotics, and also you should take and put a packet of tetracycline that you can get it at the farm store or whatever. And don't go eating that now, but during the shift you might be glad you have a little bit of tetracycline. You know what I mean? And you can buy it as powder. It comes like in a bag or whatever from the farm store. And it's not real expensive, and you put that away in your kit, in your medical kit too. But that's not for human consumption unless there's a shift, and unless you got say for some reason or another you've got some disease like say you cut yourself and you've got blood poisoning racing up your arm, and you're in the shift and you got nothing else, you know, then that tetracycline maybe, you know, but it's just for emergency. It's not something you're going to take normally, because it's you can use it for your pets too, you know. And so I wouldn't recommend that to do that, but you need put these things away in your medical kit for your emergency. This is what you do this for. And lots and lots and lots of ammunition. For the weapons that you decide to use, you want lots and lots and lots of ammo. More than you think you'd ever use on this side now if you're preparing for a shift. And so that, and your lots of canned food and stuff like that. So you gotta prepare for this stuff now. But let's hope it doesn't go that way. Let's hope it goes the way that I think it's going to go, where we don't have a shift, or we don't have a total blackout of the power, and everything stays up and running. And this is what I think we're coming into, is everything's going to stay up and running. That's what I think. But I'm not absolutely sure. I'm just hoping that it will. And I tend to think that it will. I tend to think that they're going to respond to the emergency situations as they occur, and they'll keep it up and running. This is what I think. I don't think they're going to let it go into chaos, because if they let it go into chaos, then they're going to be in big trouble themselves, you know. So I don't think it will go into that. So that's covering that. And now you're starting to get a picture of what it's going to be like. It's not going to be that long of a deal. It's probably going to be like maybe 6 months long. And it's probably when it's at its worst, it's going to be pretty intense. And when it's over, you're going to be glad that it's over, and things are going to be starting to get back to normal again. It might last a year, 6 months to a year. When it's at its worst, it's probably going to be 2 or 3 months at its worst. And people are going to have a hard time feeding themselves and feeding their families. People are not going to be as social as you think they're going to be. They're going to pull in and withdraw to their own families or their own groups. There's probably not going to be many people going out at night and partying or anything like that, like they do now. An awful lot of people are just going to disappear in this thing. The people that become homeless and stuff, they're just going to disappear off the streets because the government's going to come get them and throw them into a camp. There's going to be a lot of disease in the camps. Disease in the camps. That's going to break out in the camps, like cholera or whatever, and they'll quarantine the camp. Most of the people die in the camp. And I would be very suspicious that the government isn't using that as a cover story just to get rid of them. You know, I mean, that's the way the government's horrible. You don't realize, everybody thinks, hey, you know, the government's on our side. The government's not on your side. They're on their side. And they really, ultimately, they want you dead. It's that bad. Like I say, they're a bunch of lawyers. Fat, greedy little lawyers. I'll tell you honestly, they're horrible. They're psychopaths is what they are, and sociopaths is what they are. They got no respect and no use for what they call the common man. They don't care about us. They only care about what they can get for themselves, and raping the system all this time. And we're going to suffer through this. What's going to happen is we're going to be suffering the consequences of what they've caused. They've caused all this. America would have been a wonderful place if they had never been born. These government officials, they've caused all this through their allowing things to happen. Guys like the chairmen of the Federal Reserve, they're the worst criminal organization there ever was conceived. A bank that's not federal at all, or as federal as Federal Express. You know, and they're out to get us. They've been out to get us ever since the very start, back when they were first come into power. They're the core of what's generating the New World Order and their agenda for depopulating the earth and ushering in this new world kingdom where everything's going to be happy and wonderful, according to them. But not so wonderful for us, because according to what they want, we're not supposed to be there. I'll tell you what. If things were to go into a shift, I'm saying if, because I think there's only a small chance of that happening, it would be awfully hard to survive it, even if you're prepared for it. The reason why is because they've set us up with so many nuclear power plants, you know. And that nuclear radiation would cause tremendous problems. I'm not saying you can't survive nuclear radiation and fallout. You can, because what happens is as the fallout comes down in the rain, it only lasts for 90% of it's gone in the first 2 weeks. And if you go outside when there's fallout, bad fallout, and it rains on you, it's raining, and it rains on you, you're dead. You're going to get cooked. But if you stay inside and stay away from the outer walls of your house, you're not going to get much of the radiation. And after 2 weeks, it all boils itself off and it dissipates. 90% of it dissipates. And then the following 2 weeks, like another 90% of it's gone, and so on. It disappears rather quickly. That's when you would have to take the iodine in water, a drop of iodine in a glass of water every day, if that were to happen. But I don't think those things are going to happen. I really don't. I think that what's really going to happen is we're going to go through a situation sort of like Venezuela, but maybe not quite as bad as Venezuela. And I don't think it's going to last that long. I think it's going to last about 6 months. And I think that it's going to be hard. It's going to be as hard as the Great Depression, maybe a bit worse than the Great Depression. And I think this is rapidly approaching. I think it's only a few months away before it's going to start. I think when it comes in, and I think my channel is here, it's set up. I think that right now all these people out there are looking at other things. They're interested in other things. They're not really interested too much in this thing that's coming. I think that when this thing that's coming hits, that their interest is going to switch back and they're going to want news on what's going on and how this thing's going to play out. And I think even some of these videos, that then will be old videos by then, maybe 4 or 5 months from now. This video I'm making right now will be an old video. I think that they'll go back and revisit this old video over and over again to try to find out what to expect when this thing's on, when it starts to happen. They're going to say, hey, you know, that guy, he said it just exactly like it's happening right now. And here it is. And we better go back and see what he said again. What did he say about that? You know, and how did he say that would play out? And here it's playing out just like he said it was going to play out, you know? And what are we going to do? And how long is it going to last? How long do you think it's going to last? And all this stuff. This is all they're going to want to know about, because it's going to be affecting their life. It's going to be hitting home then at that point. You know, and they're going to feel it then at that point. Right now, they don't feel nothing. Right now, they're not interested, because what they're interested in right now is making money at their job, paying for their car, their new truck, or whatever they just bought last year on a 10-year lease, you know, and all this kind of garbage. Right now, that's what they're into. Oh, I'm going to get a raise at my job, and I got to get this truck, and I'm going to put new headers on my truck and new running boards on my truck when I get my raise at my job and all this kind of stuff. This is what they're into right now. But when this thing hits, then their job's going to be meaningless to them, because they're going to want to know, how long is this thing going to last, and how do we get out of it, and what do we do? Well, I'll tell you what, you should have bought yourself some precious metals even a little bit right now before it's got here. Right? Because when it gets here, then you'll be able to feed yourself better. Because when this thing hits, this thing's going to hit like a wallop. And it's not expected. So, anyway, I've talked a long time on this one. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video. Bye.